We're back once again beside the St. Lawrence River here in Montreal for the Canadian Grand Prix. The event first moved to the variant of this track back in 1978, and it was won by none other than Gilles Villeneuve, the first Canadian to ever win his home race, and in whose honour the circuit would be renamed. It's a tricky circuit to tackle in wet conditions, with top speed still of critical importance down the long back straight. There are 2.7 miles and 14 corners overall on this circuit that in the dry can see average lap speeds of around 130 miles per hour. We'll be lucky to get anywhere near that today. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Lando Norris will lead us away from pole position, edging out Max Verstappen, who'll start from P2. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Oscar Piastri, Fernando Alonso, Russell, Sainz, Perez, Hamilton, Albon, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Leclerc, Bottas, Magnussen, Joe, Gasly, Stroll, Hülkenberg, Sargent, and Esteban Ocon lines up at the back of the grid. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head down trackside for today's race. And with me for this commentary this afternoon, former racing driver Naomi Schiff. Now, sadly, things didn't work out for them last time. It was a bad race. Question is, though, can they recover today?
It is true they had a really tough day in the office last time out, but they cannot dwell on that. It's so important to turn the page and start on a blank slate, because the more you dwell on that, the less it's going to push you in the right direction. So take some notes. Obviously, there's things to be learned, but move on.
Radio check.
Okay, so our system checks are good. We need to stay in formation and start bringing the car up to temperature, please. Get some load into the tyres and work the brakes. We want them nice and warm by the end of this lap. Okay, that's not an ideal placement in your grid slot. You're going to need a good launch. can get past, make use of the overtake button and see what you can do. No tyre concerns at the moment, just focus on the driving. Look out for a bit of understeer when trailing the car ahead. They're going to be giving off dirty air, which is going to affect our tyres, so try to get past. Not a perfect situation, but I don't think we've got cause to move on to a different tyre yet. 10 minutes left of this rain, then we think it's going to dry up. 10 minutes. Okay, gap to the car in front, 1.6 seconds. Let's use overtake and burn off some of this energy. Okay, gap to the car ahead, 4.0 seconds. Okay, I think it might just be about time to come and change these tyres. Carlos is in the pits. other teams are fitting intermediate tyres, it might be worth considering changing yours too. Okay, no issues with tyre wear for now. Keep taking care of them. Looks like we're running on a dry track soon. Back to dry shortly. Car ahead starting to create a gap. They're just starting to pull away from us now. Okay, Charles, we've got to move up the order if we can, so I'm setting you a new target. Push, push. Okay, we're monitoring some wear on the internal combustion engine. Be aware that we're going to start to see a loss of power. Okay, here's the gap that we're trailing the car ahead by. 3.0 seconds. This lap then, come into the pits at the end of this lap. Okay, don't worry about that target for now, we can work on a new objective later. Okay, off we go, back into the race. That was a fantastic stop, faster than we were expecting. Okay, stay clear of the white line on the exit. We'll receive a penalty for dangerous driving if you cross onto the track. Our true place here. They've pitted as well, so we've got to warm up our tyres and get the most out of it. Come on. DRS has been enabled. DRS is now enabled. so you know, we're getting some strange readings from a couple of the sensors. I don't think you need to be worried, just some bad data, so keep doing what you're doing. I'll let you know if we notice any genuine problems. Okay, keep an eye on that gap ahead, please. 7.0 seconds. No need to worry about the tyre condition for now, everything's looking good. Okay, Charles, we've got some clear track in front of us, and let's make the best of it. So please make this next one a very fast lap. Sergeant, ahead. Okay, so gap to the car ahead, 7.8 seconds. They're on fresh mediums. We think they've got one more stop. Time last lap, 1:20.4, 0.3 seconds. Okay, nice work. Really good job with that target, mate. Okay, the car ahead's beginning to pull away. You know what to do. your ERS is running a bit low. Look into changing your ERS mode in the MFD for a more conservative burn rate, or you might want to try some lifting or gentle braking to recharge. And gap to the car in front, 6.2 seconds. Damage to your front wing, damage to your front wing. Suggest we box to change it.
And in the end, there was no Verstappen. Max Verstappen, he takes victory.
What a great way to turn the situation around. And you know what they say? It's not about how you fall off the horse, it's about how you get back on it. And today, they've done a great job of turning the page and rectifying their wrongs.
Red Bull are our winners today after showcasing some incredible driving. There's been a huge push from them lately to stay competitive with the other teams, and they're certainly proving themselves. Well, that was certainly an exciting weekend of Formula One. Be sure to join us for more exciting Formula One action very